Good evening, Unbearable fans. Welcome to Unbearable 73. I am Matt, your host, broadcasting live from Ants of America, New Jersey, in my hospital room. Health update, things are okay. I will do a more in-depth one maybe right for the holiday. So this video is 5 things I would change about Naruto. Now let's get a few precursors out of the way. Naruto is probably my second favorite or third favorite fandom after the Tolkien Legendary. A deep, meaningful impact to me. And when I say changes, I really mean more slight enhancements rather than big changes. So I'm primarily referring to the Naruto manga, because the anime changed some stuff and whatever. So let's go right to it. Now I want to do an honorable mention because this goes without saying for every single fan of Naruto. Okay, every one of us. Uh, show comments on stage. Every single one of them. Okay. We would you matter of fact, the perspective I am doing this from is as if I somehow time traveled and Kishimoto thought I was the greatest suggestion guy in the universe, and I could tell him these things ahead of time. So the honorable mention is Kishimoto would have full knowledge of his story from the very beginning. And for those who understand that, Kishimoto started Naruto as a tribute and homage to Dragon Ball, his favorite manga, and basically and the story evolves from tributes to things he loved, like kaiju films and 80s ninja movies and Japanese folklore and all that. Okay, and eventually by around the Akatsuki suppression arc, that's kind of where he had the story about 80-90% done, all the way to the end. Okay. So that being said, let's get in. So he would have all that knowledge of how he did the story at the end at the beginning. So he would know that, spoilers, Sasuke and Naruto are the end of a long cycle of reincarnation of Indra and Asura. Okay. For example. So now it's my top five. My 5 things I would change. Okay. I would have Kurama talking to Naruto much, much earlier. From the moment he first uses his chakra, you start seeing conversations between Naruto and Kurama. Yes, it comes out of fanfics, but I would have Naruto's convincing of Kurama be much longer term. Even have the fox, you could see giving him little bits of advice here and there. And then when Naruto doesn't listen to him, he reinforces his belief about Naruto that he likes to be human, but then when he does listen, and he thanks the fox, Kurama's like shocked he thanked him, and have the relationship build over time. Because what happened in the original anime is, again, because he constructed the story in the way he did, with not knowing the whole story at the beginning, is that a lot of the personality of Kurama really only comes out when we get to the Fourth War, right? Well, that's basically when he invented like 90% of Kurama's personality. And it would be nice to see Kurama's disgruntlement and Naruto's talking about Jutsu working on him over time and all that, sort of. So that's my number 5. Okay. I'm not going to do these like ranking, like in a ranked order. So that's one of my 5. My next thing I would change. One of Naruto's missions, right, after he comes back from the training trip, he'd go on a mission. He'd find survivors of the Uzumaki clan and bring them to Konoha. There won't be a lot of them. Because if there's like 100 of them or whatever, it's game breaking. Like it changes the entire story with that many masters of Funinjutsu. So he'd find like a small enclave here in the mountains where maybe 20 Uzumaki remain, and he takes them to Konoha, where they become a clan of Konoha. And that, to me, is a better solution to the Ito Tensei spam meaning you'd have a couple of Uzumaki Ninjutsu masters, you know, stealing away some of the Itos as they battle. Okay. And there will be other reasons. That would be that would so we would have the legacy, and I'll get to this in a minute. Number three, when I get to number three, but the legacy of the Uzumaki clan would show in the story. Okay, because that's I felt that was very lacking, other than Naruto's heritage, his chakra heritage, the ability to contain Kurama, basically, and inheritance of the Senju Uzumaki Kekkei Genkai of that incredible physical connection to the earth. So the material plane, so to speak, which is what why they can be the Jinchuriki of Kurama. Some of them. So number three, Naruto obviously had the tie-in to Minato with the wind and with the speed, right? But he didn't. I felt, other than being Kurama Jinchuriki, he didn't manifest Kushina at all. So I would have done one of two things, and I think it would have. I would have. Well, I would have done maybe both. Okay, I would have had Naruto start studying and using Fujitsu. So and that would show up when he fights Tensei. He can tag them and steal them away. That would have been a cool ability to have. I also would have given him the adamantine chains. Okay, and I think that would have been a nice alternative tool in some of the things that Kishimoto came up with to deal with certain things. So those would have been, and he would have gotten those much younger. Like, instead of farting in Kiba's face, he would have beaten Kiba with the adamantine chains. You know, that was number three. The Naruto's having more stuff from his mom. So he had his dad's stuff with wind and speed, and mom would be the chains and Fujitsu, which actually both his parents Fujitsu. So number two and number one, here are the big ones. So we learn eventually that the sage had a multitude of powers, right? And one set of his powers was his what's called his yin abilities, his mental prowess, and the Indra inherited that. And another set of abilities was his yang prowess, right? The bodily chakra aspect, and Asura inherited that, right? I would have said it, and we noticed that all the sages we meet who are humans, Hashirama, Jiraiya, and Naruto, two or three of them are inheritors of Asura. Okay, so what I would have done is that this is a big change I would make. The first of several changes of sage to sage ability is I would have it so that only descendants of Asura can become sages. You have to have the sages bodily tied. For a human, you have to have the sages bodily yang chakra connection, the connection to the reality, so to speak, in order to learn, in order to interact with natural energy in a way that doesn't kill you, okay, or at all. Related to that change, anyone who gets Orochimaru's curse mark, when they die, they will turn to stone, and anyone who dies from the curse mark will turn to stone. Also related to Sage mode, when you learn Sage ability, right, and not Sage mode per se, that's added on. When you become a Sage, you learn to balance natural chakra, to balance natural energy with your yin and yang energies, right? That's a permanent change. Natural energy always flows through your body, and you are therefore always enhanced. You have enhanced physical durability, a higher level of strength you can use without even going into Sage mode. You always get the Sage sensory ability, even when you're not in Sage mode, and it's just not as long range unless you're in Sage mode. You have Hashirama Sage mode where you just turn on, and your ability to be in the Sage mode is limited. How much it's based on how much of your chakra your body generates over the term. So eventually, when your chakra runs low, you 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 naturally stop generating enough sage chakra to be in sage mode, right? Um, you know, and also anyone who becomes a sage automatically gets all seven chakra transformations: earth, fire, air, water, lightning, and yin and yang. You still have to train them to master them, but you don't have to train them to have them. Okay, so like you would have the beginning level exercise of all five mastered, you could therefore do jutsu with them, and you are inclined therefore as a sage, even outside of sage mode, to be able to directly manipulate chakra for elemental reasons. So you'd see a lot more ninju and less ninjutsu. So that's the sage mode, and then sage mode is enhanced at the top of that. You know, all the stuff we saw, um, and all. I guess the last change I would make to Naruto, given all the, I mean, okay, which was the last one I could pick? All right. I mean, unfortunately, we can't change Naruto's childhood too much, or he's not Naruto. He needs to suffer, unfortunately. Right. Uh, and I'm not talking about when I say changes. I'm not going to say, well, Kakashi trained him better or whatever. Kakashi trained his Genin. Okay, they just didn't show it, but he was training him in taijutsu. He was training him in all sorts of stuff. Okay, so they didn't show the training because they went straight from uh, the basically first several months of their training was like in one and a half episodes. You know, which that might be a structural change where they show a couple of more early missions, you know, show some more of the early training instead of like two episodes, more like 5 or 6 episodes before the wave arc, you know, and then maybe a couple after with more training and show some of the other teams and stuff. Let's see. And then I'm not, yeah. Uh, the other Jinchuriki. This will be. I'll make another honorable mention. Maybe have more of the other Jinchuriki interact, having stuff to do, so you have emotional connections to them all. You know, so they can be. You can have some art. You can have some side stories where you see Han and you see Udakata and you see Yukito and all do at least a mission or something. Uh, you know, the Hyuga incident irks me. Um, but I wouldn't change it. At least I wouldn't put it on those 5 things I must change. Uh, I guess the final thing to change is I would decompress the Fourth Shinobi War. Okay, so Obito is the villain of the Fourth Shinobi War. Defeat Obito, and it's over. Okay. Then there's a time skip. During that time skip, Naruto is a Jonin. Give Naruto a Jonin, make him have the next Team 7. They really should have Konohamaru and crew a couple years younger, so Naruto could have been their Jonin Sensei. That would have made perfect sense, you know. But whatever. It's not how Ibisu gets Team 7 after that. Uh, yeah, I think if Konohamaru and crew were 3 years younger, and so when, I think Naruto meets Konohamaru when he was like 8 or 9 years old, meets him when he's 5 or 6. That would have been worked out better for the storyline. Anyway, so we're decompressing the Fourth Shinobi War. Then we come back with Madara, who he's an Edo Tensei, and it seems like when they finally uh, defeat Orochimaru and Kabuto. Well, actually, let's forget them. Defeat whoever we have Orochimaru or Kabuto with Edo Tensei's. We defeat that person. And it seems like Madara has gone back to dead, But Black Setsu does something that sort of captures his soul. And we see at the end an epilogue where Madara is now Io Tensei. And no one knows, um, like they think the Rinnegan was destroyed. Maybe they think it died with Obito or whatever, or they couldn't find one eye or something like that. So eventually Madara gets resurrected. Then you have not a war but a conflict. Like, a team is assembled to deal with Madara. At the end of that, we see Madara seemingly dying, but Black Setsu just absorbs all the energy and the Rinnegan and awaken and starts slowly awakening Kaguya, right? And then a final story, maybe a movie where Kaguya emerges. Black Setsu is revealed as having manipulated, so as the manipulator, and then a final battle with Kaguya, not a war, right? That would have been the way I did it. And then maybe have finally at the end of all that, Sasuke, who has been doing stuff, for the time period, comes back, helps with Kaguya. Then Naruto versus Sasuke. Well, basically, Naruto becomes Hokage. On the day he becomes Hokage, Sasuke shows up, not taking over. They have their fight, and that's the end of Naruto, right? That's that decompression of the Fourth Shinobi War is what I would change, right? So there's the 5 things I would change about Naruto. What would you change? Drop a question down below. Maybe I'll do a follow-up video if I have questions. Anyway, this has been. Sorry if I'm slurring a little. My allergies in the middle of December. My allergies are killing me. So, drop a comment down below if you are interested in responding. Like if you like, dislike if you dislike. Share this out there. Subscribe if you can. Survive if I let you. ECW. Thank you all. Have a happy holidays. Bye. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Screw the Happy Holidays nonsense.